I never thought a snow shovel would land someone in court with a criminal record, but here we are, and I have the paperwork to prove it. My name is Derek Kensington, and I live in Pinewood Estates, a planned community in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where the winters hit hard and the homeowners association hits harder. I bought my house here 3 years ago, thinking I'd found the perfect suburban dream. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a decent yard, and neighbors who seemed normal enough at first glance. The HOA seemed like a minor inconvenience, just another set of rules to follow about lawn height and mailbox colors. I had no idea what I was walking into. The trouble started in December, right after the first major snowfall of the season. I'm talking about one of those overnight dumps where you wake up and there's 14 inches of fresh powder blocking your driveway. Beautiful to look at, absolute hell to deal with before work. I'd bought a really nice snow shovel from the hardware store on Alpine Avenue, one of those ergonomic models with the curved handle that actually saves your back. Cost me $45, which sounds steep for a shovel, but anyone who spent 3 hours hunched over clearing a driveway knows it's worth every penny. I left it on my front porch that first day after clearing my driveway and sidewalk. I was sweating despite the 20-degree temperature, and I went inside to grab some water and warm up. When I came back out 20 minutes later to do the walkway to my mailbox, the shovel was gone, just vanished. I looked around my yard, thinking maybe the wind had blown it over, but there was no wind that morning. The snow on my porch showed no signs of the shovel having fallen or rolled anywhere. It had simply been taken. My first thought was that maybe one of my neighbors had borrowed it in an emergency. That happens sometimes in communities like ours. Someone's shovel breaks, they grab yours, they bring it back later with an apologetic note. No big deal. I grabbed my old, cheaper shovel from the garage and finished the job, figuring I'd see my good one returned by evening. Evening came and went. No shovel. The next day, still no shovel. I was starting to get annoyed, but I'm not the type to immediately assume the worst of people. I posted in our neighborhood Facebook group, keeping it friendly and casual, just saying I'd left my shovel on the porch, and if anyone had borrowed it, could they please return it? A few people reacted to the post with sympathy emojis. Nobody admitted to taking it. 3 days later, I was driving home from work when I spotted it. My exact shovel, the red ergonomic model with the distinctive curved handle, and the small dent near the blade where I'd accidentally hit it against my porch step. It was leaning against the garage door of a house 4 doors down from mine. The house belonged to Patricia Henderson, the HOA president. Patricia was exactly what you'd picture when someone says, HOA Karen. 52 years old, blonde hair always done up in that specific suburban mom style with the highlights, and the volume, expensive athleisure, where despite never actually exercising, and a permanent expression like she just smelled something slightly off. She'd been HOA president for 6 years, and she ruled Pinewood Estates like her own personal fiefdom. I'd had a few run-ins with her already over minor stuff. She'd sent me a violation notice because my garage door was open past 8 p.m. on a Saturday when I was organizing some storage bins. She'd complained that my grass was a 1/4 inch too tall in September. She'd even tried to fine me because my car was parked in my driveway facing the wrong direction, though she backed down when I pointed out that particular rule didn't actually exist in our bylaws. Seeing my shovel at her house, something clicked. I pulled into my driveway, parked, and walked down to her place. The sun was setting and the streetlights were starting to flicker on. I could see lights on inside her house, and her Mercedes SUV was in the driveway. I rang the doorbell and waited. Patricia opened the door, and her expression immediately shifted from neutral to vaguely hostile when she saw me. "Derek, what do you want?" "Hi, Patricia. I noticed you have my snow shovel by your garage, the red one. I left it on my porch a few days ago and it went missing. I'd like it back." Her eyes narrowed. "That's my shovel. I bought it at the hardware store last week. It has a dent near the blade, right here." I pointed to the spot, even though we were still standing at her door and the shovel was 20 feet away. "I accidentally hit it against my porch step the first day I used it. It's definitely mine." "I don't know what you're talking about. That's my shovel. I have the receipt somewhere." The audacity was stunning. I could feel my blood pressure rising, but I kept my voice calm. "Patricia, I know it's mine. Please just give it back and we can forget about this." "Are you calling me a thief?" "Because that's defamation, Derek. I could report you to the HOA board for harassment." "You are the HOA board, Patricia, or at least the president of it. And I'm not calling you anything. I'm just saying that's my shovel and I'd like it back." She crossed her arms. "Well, it's not yours, and if you don't leave my property right now, I'll call the police for trespassing." I stared at her for a long moment, trying to process what was happening. This woman had clearly taken my shovel and was now threatening me for asking for it back. "Fine," I said finally. "Keep the shovel. I'll buy a new one." I walked back to my house, absolutely fuming. It wasn't even about the $45 anymore. It was the principle. The sheer entitlement of taking something that didn't belong to her and then threatening me when I called her out. But I'm a practical guy. I didn't want to escalate things over a shovel. I'd buy a new one, keep it in my garage, and avoid Patricia Henderson as much as possible. The next day, I went back to the hardware store and bought an identical shovel. Another $45 down the drain, but whatever. I was determined to just move on. This time, I kept it in my garage. I wasn't leaving anything on my porch anymore. 2 weeks passed. We got another big snowfall, this time about 10 inches overnight. I woke up early to clear the driveway before work. I opened my garage door, reached for my shovel, and stopped. It was gone. My brand new shovel, which I'd kept in my locked garage, had vanished. My garage door has an automatic lock that engages when it closes, and I'm religious about hitting the button to close it. There was no sign of forced entry, no damage to the lock, nothing. I stood there in my garage, staring at the empty spot where the shovel should have been, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Someone was deliberately taking my shovels, and I had a pretty good idea who. I used my old backup shovel to clear the driveway, and as soon as I finished, I walked down to Patricia's house. Sure enough, there it was. My new red shovel, identical to the first one, leaning right next to the old one by her garage door. She now had 2 of my shovels. This time, I didn't knock on her door. I took out my phone and snapped several clear photos of both shovels by her garage, making sure to get her house number in the frame. Then I walked back home and called the non-emergency police line. The dispatcher was polite, but sounded skeptical. "So you're reporting a stolen snow shovel?" 2 stolen snow shovels, actually. Both taken from my property, both now at a neighbor's house. I have photos. "And you're sure they're yours?" "I'm positive. The first one has a distinctive dent. The second one I just bought 2 weeks ago and kept in my locked garage." "Sir, have you tried talking to your neighbor about this?" "Yes. She denied taking the first one and threatened to call the police on me for harassment." There was a pause. "Okay. We can send an officer out, but I have to tell you, property disputes between neighbors usually need to be settled in small claims court. The officer can mediate, but—" "I understand. I just want this documented." An officer showed up about an hour later. His name was Officer Martinez, and he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Can't say I blamed him. Stolen snow shovels probably weren't why he joined the police force. I explained the situation, showed him the photos, and we walked together to Patricia's house. She answered the door with a warm smile that immediately froze when she saw the cop. "Good morning, madam. I'm Officer Martinez. We received a report about some stolen property, and I'm here to help sort things out. Do you own 2 red snow shovels with curved handles?" Patricia's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, anger, calculation, and finally, indignation. "Yes, I own 2 shovels. I bought them both at the hardware store. Is that illegal now?" "Not at all, madam, but your neighbor here says they belong to him. Says one was taken from his porch and one from his garage." "That's ridiculous. He's harassing me. I told him that last time he came to my door making accusations." Officer Martinez looked at me. "Can you prove ownership? The first one has a dent. I told her about it last time. The second one I bought 2 weeks ago." I pulled out my phone. "I still have the receipt in my email. I can show you the date and the store location." Patricia jumped in. "I have receipts too. I'll go get them right now." She disappeared into the house for several minutes. Officer Martinez and I stood there in awkward silence. When she came back, she was holding 2 crumpled receipts. She handed them to the officer with a triumphant expression. Martinez looked them over, and I watched his expression change. He looked at Patricia, then at the receipts again, then back at her. "Madam, these receipts are from different stores and different dates, but they're both for the exact same amount. Same tax, same total, even the same transaction time. 10:15 a.m. Patricia's face went red. "So what? Maybe I bought them at the same time of day. Is that suspicious?" "Madam, one of these says it's from a store on Alpine Avenue and the other says it's from a store on 28th Street, and they're both dated for today. Within the last hour, actually." My eyes widened. She'd actually printed fake receipts to try to prove she owned my shovels. The sheer boldness of it was almost impressive. I must have grabbed the wrong receipts. Let me go check again." "Madam, I think we both know what's going on here. I'm going to need you to return the shovels to your neighbor." Patricia's expression turned venomous. "This is harassment. He's been targeting me because I'm HOA president and I have to enforce the community rules. He's had multiple violations, and instead of taking responsibility, he's making up lies about me. The receipts you just showed me are clearly fabricated, madam. That's not helping your case. I want to speak to your supervisor. I know the police chief. My husband plays golf with him." Officer Martinez's jaw tightened. I could tell he was losing patience. "Madam, you can speak to whoever you want, but right now, I'm telling you to return the shovels. If you refuse, this could escalate to formal theft charges." For a moment, I thought she might actually double down. But finally, she stalked over to her garage, grabbed both shovels, and shoved them at me. "Fine, take them. I don't need your cheap shovels anyway." I took them without a word. Officer Martinez handed her back the fake receipts. "I'm going to note this incident in my report. I suggest you don't take anything else from your neighbor's property." As we walked back toward my house, Martinez said quietly, "Document everything. Keep those shovels somewhere secure. People like that don't usually stop after one confrontation." He was right. I put both shovels in my garage and installed a security camera above my garage door that night. One of those smart cameras that sends alerts to your phone and records to the cloud. Cost me about $120, which meant Patricia's theft hobby had now cost me over $200 total, but I wanted proof if she tried anything else. The camera paid for itself within a week. It was a Tuesday morning, around 6 a.m. I was getting ready for work when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the garage camera. I opened the app and watched in real time as Patricia Henderson walked up my driveway, carrying a device that looked like a garage door opener. She pointed it at my garage door and clicked. Nothing happened. She tried again, adjusting the angle. Still nothing. I nearly laughed out loud. She had one of those universal garage door openers, the kind that cycles through common frequencies to try to match your specific door. That's how she'd gotten in the first time. She must have used it while I was at work, grabbed the shovel, and I'd never known. But after installing the camera, I'd also changed my garage door opener to a rolling code system that couldn't be hacked this way. Patricia clicked the device several more times, looking increasingly frustrated. Then she glanced around, presumably to make sure nobody was watching, and tried the side door to my garage. Locked. She actually tried to force it, pushing hard on the handle. I'd seen enough. I grabbed my phone and called the police again, this time with urgency in my voice. Someone is actively trying to break into my garage. I have them on camera right now. The dispatcher's tone changed immediately. Are you in danger? Are they trying to enter your house? No, just the garage, but I'm watching it happen live on my security camera. Officers are on the way. Stay inside and keep your doors locked. I watched Patricia through the camera for another minute. She finally gave up on the side door and walked back down my driveway, but instead of going home, she lingered by my mailbox, looking agitated. She kept glancing at my house like she was trying to decide something. Police cars arrived within 5 minutes, lights flashing. Patricia's whole demeanor changed instantly. She put on this confused, concerned expression and walked toward the officers like she was a worried neighbor checking on a disturbance. 2 officers got out. One was Officer Martinez from before, and the other was a female officer whose nameplate read Officer Chen. Martinez recognized me immediately as I stepped outside. "Mr. Kensington, you called about an attempted break-in." "Yes, I have the whole thing on video." I pulled up the footage on my phone and showed them. The video was crystal clear. Patricia approaching with the universal opener, trying it multiple times, attempting to force the side door. Her face was clearly visible. Officer Chen's eyebrows went up. "That's your HOA president, right?" "That's her." Patricia had been hovering nearby, trying to listen, and now she approached with her hands up in a placating gesture. "Officers, I can explain. This is all a misunderstanding." Martinez turned to her. "Miss Henderson, we have you on video attempting to open this man's garage door with what appears to be a universal opener, and then trying to force entry through a side door. What exactly is the misunderstanding?" "I thought I saw someone suspicious around his property. I was trying to check if everything was secure. As HOA president, it's my responsibility to ensure the safety of our community." The lie was so transparent it was almost funny. Chen looked at her with undisguised skepticism. "By trying to break into his garage." "I wasn't breaking in. I was checking." With a universal garage door opener, Patricia's face flushed. "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any such device." Martinez held out his hand. "Madam, we can clearly see it in the video. Do you have it on you right now?" "No, I left it at home." "I mean, I don't have one. I don't know what that was." This was getting surreal. Chen looked at Martinez, then at me, then back at Patricia. "Madam, we're going to need to have a more formal conversation about this. You have the right to remain silent." Patricia's eyes went wide. "Are you arresting me? For what?" "I didn't do anything. Attempted burglary, for starters. You were caught on camera attempting to gain unauthorized access to someone else's property using a specialized device." "This is insane. He's been harassing me for weeks. He's making all of this up." Martinez's voice was firm. "Madam, we have clear video evidence. We also have the previous incident on record where you were found in possession of this man's stolen property and presented falsified receipts to a police officer. You need to cooperate right now or this will get much worse." I watched as Patricia's entire composure crumbled. Her face went from red to pale and her hands started shaking. "I want to call my lawyer." "You're welcome to do that. But first, we need to sort out what you have on you. Do you have the garage door opener?" She didn't answer. Chen gestured to the patrol car. "We're going to need you to come with us." They didn't handcuff her right there on the street, which probably saved her some embarrassment with the neighbors, but they did escort her to the patrol car. Patricia was crying now, mascara running down her face, saying something about how her husband was going to kill her, and this would ruin everything. Martinez stayed behind with me for a few minutes. "We'll need a copy of that video footage for evidence. You can email it to the case number I'll give you." "Absolutely. Whatever you need." This is probably going to turn into a bigger deal than just attempted burglary. The previous theft, the false documents she showed me, the harassment pattern. The prosecutor will want to look at all of it together. "I just wanted my shovels back. I didn't think it would go this far." Martinez gave me a sympathetic look. People in positions of power, even small power like an HOA, sometimes they think the rules don't apply to them. Then they double down instead of admitting they made a mistake. It's a pattern we see more than you'd think. After they left, I stood in my driveway for a long moment, processing everything that had just happened. Neighbors were starting to emerge from their houses, drawn by the police lights. I could see curtains moving in windows. This was going to be the talk of Pinewood Estates for months. My phone started buzzing with messages from the neighborhood Facebook group. People had seen the police cars and were asking what happened. I ignored them for now. I didn't want to get into it publicly until I knew how everything was going to shake out legally. I went to work that day in a daze, barely able to concentrate on anything. My boss asked if I was okay, and I gave him a brief rundown. He was stunned. Over a snow shovel. She risked criminal charges over a snow shovel. 2 snow shovels, I corrected. And apparently her pride. The next few days were a whirlwind. I was contacted by the Kent County Prosecutor's Office. A woman named Assistant Prosecutor Sarah Holloway called and explained that they were moving forward with charges against Patricia Henderson. The charges included 2 counts of larceny, 1 count of attempted burglary, 1 count of possession of burglary tools, and 1 count of filing a false police report for the fake receipts. "We take this kind of thing seriously," Holloway explained. "It might seem minor on the surface, but the pattern of behavior, the abuse of her HOA position, the escalation to attempted burglary, the fabrication of evidence. It paints a picture of someone who believes they are above the law. We want to make it clear that nobody is." "What happens now?" "She'll be arraigned. She can post bail, but she'll have conditions. Stay away from you for one. No contact. Then we'll either go to trial or work out a plea deal, depending on what her attorney wants to do." "Do I need to do anything?" "You'll likely be called as a witness if it goes to trial. We have your video evidence, which is very strong, but your testimony about the pattern of behavior will be important. We'll also need the original receipts for your shovel purchases, anything that establishes your ownership." The arraignment happened fast. Michigan law requires it within a certain time frame after arrest. Patricia was released on a $5,000 bond with conditions that she stay away from me and have no contact. I didn't attend the arraignment, but Holloway called me afterward to let me know how it went. She pleaded not guilty to all charges. Her attorney is trying to claim diminished capacity due to stress from her HOA duties. It's not going to work, but they're trying. Stress made her steal my shovels and fake receipts. Yeah, it's a weak defense. Her attorney knows it. I expect they'll come back with a plea offer request in the next few weeks." She was right. 3 weeks later, Holloway called again. Patricia's attorney wants to negotiate. They're offering to plead guilty to the larceny charges in exchange for dropping the burglary and false report charges. What does that mean for her? Larceny in Michigan can be a misdemeanor or felony depending on the value. 2 shovels worth $90 total is clearly misdemeanor territory. She'd be looking at up to 93 days in jail and a fine up to $500, or 3 times the value of the stolen property, whichever is greater. But realistically, for a first-time offender, she'd probably get probation, community service, and restitution to you. What do you think I should do? That's ultimately up to the prosecutor's office, not you, but your input matters. Personally, I think we should reject the offer. The attempted burglary charge is solid. The false report charge is solid. She shouldn't get to wiggle out of the more serious charges just because she got caught. I agree. She didn't stop at just taking the shovels. She escalated. She needs to face consequences for all of it. Holloway sounded pleased. I was hoping you'd say that. We'll reject the offer and prepare for trial. The news spread through Pinewood Estates like wildfire. Patricia had stepped down as HOA president immediately after her arrest, citing health reasons, but everyone knew what had really happened. The HOA board appointed an interim president, a guy named Tom Martinez, who actually seemed reasonable and normal. He reached out to me personally to apologize for what I'd gone through and assured me that the board was implementing new oversight procedures. Some of the neighbors were supportive. They'd had their own run-ins with Patricia over the years and were quietly glad to see her get some comeuppance. Others thought I'd overreacted. "It's just a shovel," one woman said to me at the mailbox one day. "Did you really have to get the police involved?" I looked at her evenly. She stole from me twice, lied about it, faked evidence, and then tried to break into my garage. At what point should I have gotten the police involved? She didn't have a good answer for that. Patricia's trial was scheduled for late February. Michigan winters being what they are, we'd had several more major snowfalls by then. Every time I used my shovel, which I now kept locked in a storage cabinet in my garage with a secondary lock, I thought about the absurdity of the whole situation. A $45 shovel had spiraled into a criminal trial. The trial itself was surreal. It was held at the Kent County Courthouse in downtown Grand Rapids, in one of those classic old courtrooms with wooden benches and high ceilings. I'd never been to a trial before, and I was nervous about testifying, even though Holloway had prepared me thoroughly. Patricia showed up wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, looking nothing like the aggressive, put-together HOA president I'd known. Her attorney, a middle-aged man named Robert Fletcher, was clearly going for sympathy. She looked like somebody's sweet aunt, not a petty thief. The jury selection took most of the first day. Fletcher kept striking potential jurors who lived in HOA communities, apparently afraid they'd be biased against Patricia. Holloway struck several older women, probably worried they'd sympathize with Patricia too much. They eventually settled on a jury of 8 women and 4 men, ranging in age from early 20s to mid-60s. Holloway's opening statement was crisp and clear. She laid out the timeline: the first shovel theft, my confrontation with Patricia; the second theft, the fake receipts; and finally the attempted burglary caught on camera. She emphasized the pattern of escalation and Patricia's abuse of her position. Fletcher's opening statement tried to paint Patricia as overwhelmed and confused. He claimed she genuinely believed the first shovel was hers, that the confusion had spiraled out of control, and that she'd panicked when confronted by police. He argued there was no criminal intent, Just a series of misunderstandings compounded by stress. I was called to testify on the second day. Holloway walked me through everything. Buying the first shovel, finding it missing, seeing it at Patricia's house, our conversation. Buying the second shovel, finding it missing from my locked garage, seeing both shovels at Patricia's house, calling the police. She had me describe the garage camera installation and what I'd witnessed the morning of the attempted burglary. Fletcher's cross-examination tried to make me seem vindictive. Isn't it true that you had multiple HOA violations that Miss Henderson had to address? She sent me violation notices a few times, yes, for things like my garage door being open late or my grass being slightly too tall. And you resented her for that, didn't you? I thought some of the violations were petty, but I didn't resent her. I just wanted my shovel back. You posted about her on social media, didn't you? After the first incident, I posted in our neighborhood Facebook group asking if anyone had borrowed my shovel. I didn't mention Patricia by name. But you were trying to publicly shame whoever took it, weren't you? Holloway objected. Argumentative. The judge sustained it. Fletcher tried a few more angles, but he couldn't shake my testimony. The facts were the facts. The video evidence was even more damning. When they played it in court, you could see the jury members' expressions change. There was no misunderstanding captured in that footage. It showed deliberate, calculated action. Officer Martinez testified about the fake receipts and Patricia's behavior during both police calls. His testimony was straightforward and professional, and Fletcher couldn't poke any holes in it. The most dramatic moment came when Patricia herself took the stand. Fletcher had her tell a rambling story about stress and confusion. She claimed she'd found the first shovel abandoned by the side of the road during her morning walk and assumed someone had discarded it. She said she'd bought the second shovel legitimately, and the receipts must have been printed incorrectly due to a computer error. Then Holloway stood up for cross-examination, and everything fell apart. Miss Henderson, you testified that you found the first shovel by the side of the road. Which road? Patricia hesitated. I don't remember exactly, somewhere in the neighborhood. The shovel was taken from Mr. Kensington's front porch. He testified to that. Are you saying he's lying? No, maybe he's mistaken. Maybe he left it somewhere else. And the second shovel, you claim you bought it legitimately. Can you provide a real receipt? I told you, the receipt was wrong. The computer made an error. Miss Henderson, the receipt you showed Officer Martinez was printed the same day he came to your house. It wasn't from weeks earlier when you allegedly purchased the shovel. How do you explain that? Patricia's face crumbled. She started crying. I was scared. I panicked. He was accusing me of being a thief and the police were there and I thought if I showed them a receipt, everyone would leave me alone. So you admit you fabricated the receipt? Yes, but I didn't steal the shovels. I really thought they were mine. If you thought they were yours, why did you need to fabricate a receipt? Patricia didn't have an answer. She just sat there crying while Fletcher scrambled to object on various grounds. The judge overruled him. Holloway pressed on. And the morning you were caught on camera trying to break into Mr. Kensington's garage, what were you doing with a universal garage door opener? I told the police I was checking on his property. I thought I saw someone suspicious. At 6 in the morning, before sunrise, and you just happened to have a specialized burglary tool with you. It's not a burglary tool, it's just a garage door opener. A universal opener that can hack into other people's garages. Why would you need that if you were just checking on suspicious activity? Patricia's attorney objected again. My client doesn't have to justify what tools she owns. The judge looked skeptical but sustained the objection on a technicality. Still, the damage was done. The jury had seen Patricia admit to faking evidence, and heard her weak explanations for everything else. Closing arguments came the next day. Holloway was devastating. She walked through each charge methodically, showing how the evidence proved each element beyond a reasonable doubt. She showed the jury photos of the shovels, the video footage, the fake receipts. She quoted Patricia's own testimony admitting to fabricating evidence. "This isn't about a shovel," Holloway said. "This is about someone who believed her position gave her the right to take what she wanted, lie about it, and then escalate to attempted burglary when she was caught." Patricia Henderson showed a complete disregard for her neighbor's property rights and for the truth. She showed no remorse until she was facing criminal charges. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a pattern of criminal behavior. Fletcher's closing argument tried to appeal to sympathy. He painted Patricia as a dedicated volunteer who'd given years of service to her community, who'd cracked under pressure and made bad decisions, but who didn't deserve to have her life ruined over shovels worth less than $100. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they came back, the forewoman read the verdicts in a clear, steady voice. Guilty on both counts of larceny. Guilty on attempted burglary. Guilty on possession of burglary tools. Guilty on filing a false police report. Patricia sobbed into her hands. Her husband, who'd been sitting in the back of the courtroom looking miserable throughout the trial, put his face in his hands. Fletcher asked for bail pending sentencing, and the judge granted it, maintaining the no-contact order. Sentencing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Holloway called me beforehand to ask if I wanted to make a victim impact statement. I thought about it for a long time. Part of me wanted to stand up in court and explain how Patricia's actions had affected me, the stress and expense and violation of trust. But another part of me just wanted it to be over. In the end, I wrote a brief statement and had Holloway read it on my behalf. It said, "What started as a simple theft of a snow shovel became a pattern of escalating criminal behavior that made me feel unsafe in my own home. I had to install security cameras and additional locks because I couldn't trust that my property or my privacy would be respected. I don't wish Patricia Henderson any particular harm, but I hope the court will impose consequences that make it clear this behavior is unacceptable and prevent it from happening to anyone else." The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Carolyn Brennan, listened to Fletcher's plea for leniency. He argued that Patricia had no prior criminal record, that she'd already lost her position in the HOA and suffered immense social consequences, and that probation with restitution would be sufficient. Holloway argued for jail time. The defendant didn't just commit one impulsive crime. She committed multiple crimes over weeks, escalating in seriousness and showing no remorse until she was caught. She fabricated evidence to try to cover her tracks. She tried to use her position to intimidate the victim. This warrants incarceration. Judge Brennan took a long moment before speaking. When she did, her voice was firm. "Miss Henderson, I've presided over a lot of cases in my years on the bench. I've seen people driven to crime by desperation, by addiction, by circumstances beyond their control. That's not what happened here. You committed these crimes because you felt entitled to do so. You believed your position gave you privileges that others didn't have. When you were caught, instead of taking responsibility, you doubled down. You lied to the police. You fabricated evidence. You escalated to attempted burglary. Even during this trial, your testimony showed more concern with avoiding consequences than with acknowledging the harm you caused." Patricia was crying again, her shoulders shaking. The larceny charges are misdemeanors, but when combined with the attempted burglary and false report charges, they paint a picture of someone who poses a genuine threat to community safety. I'm sentencing you as follows. For each count of larceny, 90 days in the county jail. For attempted burglary, 1 year in the county jail. For possession of burglary tools, 6 months. For filing a false police report, 6 months. These sentences will run concurrently, meaning you'll serve 1 year total. You'll receive credit for time served, and you'll be eligible for work release after 90 days if your behavior is exemplary. Fletcher looked shocked. Patricia let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a wail. Additionally, you'll pay restitution to Mr. Kensington in the amount of $90 for the shovels, plus $200 for his security camera system, plus any additional documented expenses he incurred as a result of your actions. You'll be on probation for 2 years following your release, during which time you'll complete 200 hours of community service. And Miss Henderson, I'm imposing a special condition. You are prohibited from holding any position of authority in any homeowners association or similar organization during your probation period. The gavel came down. Patricia was led away by the bailiff, still crying. Her husband followed, looking shattered. I sat in the courtroom for a few minutes after everyone else had left, just processing. A year in jail for stealing 2 snow shovels, except it wasn't really about the shovels anymore, and maybe it never had been. It was about someone who'd wielded a small amount of power like a weapon, who'd believed rules were for other people, who'd escalated and escalated until the law had no choice but to step in. Holloway came over as I was leaving. How are you feeling? Honestly, I don't know. Part of me thinks a year is harsh for what started as a $45 shovel. But then, I remember her trying to break into my garage and the fake receipts, and she had multiple chances to stop. She could have returned the first shovel and apologized. She could have admitted what she'd done when the police first got involved. She could have taken a plea deal. At every turn, she chose to escalate. That's on her, not on you. I know. I just never thought it would end like this. Most people don't set out to get a criminal record. They make one bad choice, then another, and suddenly they are in too deep. It's sad, but it's also a choice. I thanked her for her work and walked out of the courthouse into the cold February afternoon. Snow was falling again, light flakes drifting down from a gray sky. I thought about all the times I'd shoveled my driveway over the past few months, all the time this situation had consumed, all the stress and anger and disbelief. Back at Pinewood Estates, things slowly returned to normal. The new HOA president, Tom, was doing a good job. He focused on actual community issues rather than petty violations. People stopped gossiping about Patricia after a few weeks. Life moved on. I got a check for $415 about a month after the sentencing. Restitution for the shovels, the camera, and some incidental expenses I documented. I deposited it and then, on impulse, went to the hardware store and bought the most expensive, highest quality snow shovel they had. $75. I figured I'd earned it. Patricia served 8 months of her year sentence and was released early for good behavior. I never saw her again. According to neighborhood gossip, she and her husband sold their house and moved to another state. I hoped she'd learned something from the experience, but I wasn't counting on it. The criminal record would follow her forever, though. That was the part that hit hardest when I really thought about it. Anytime she applied for a job, anytime someone ran a background check, there it would be. Convicted of larceny, attempted burglary, filing a false report. All because of 2 snow shovels and an inability to admit she'd made a mistake. Winter ended. Spring came. My security camera kept recording, though nothing interesting ever showed up on it anymore. I kept my shovel locked in the cabinet. though I wasn't sure if that was out of actual caution or just habit at this point. Sometimes, when I'm out clearing the driveway after a snowfall, I think about the whole crazy saga. How something so mundane became so significant. How a simple theft escalated into criminal court and jail time. How someone's pride and sense of entitlement destroyed their reputation and freedom. I also think about the system. How initially nobody wanted to take it seriously. It's just a shovel. Handle it in small claims court. Neighbors need to work things out themselves. But the system eventually worked the way it was supposed to. The evidence was clear, the charges were appropriate, and justice was served, even if it felt strange to call it justice over something as trivial as a snow shovel. The shovels themselves are long gone. I donated the 2 I recovered from Patricia to a community charity, figuring I didn't need the reminders. I use my fancy $75 model now, and it really is better. Ergonomic handle, lightweight but sturdy, perfect blade angle, worth every penny. Last month, I ran into Officer Martinez at a coffee shop downtown. He recognized me and came over to say hello. We chatted for a few minutes about how the case had turned out. He told me it had become something of a teaching example at the department about how small crimes can escalate and how important it is to take victims seriously, even when the property value seems minimal. "You were right about one thing," I told him. "You said people in power sometimes think the rules don't apply to them. Patricia proved that. The sad thing is, she probably could have gotten away with it if she just stopped after the first one. Returned it anonymously, moved on, you never would have known for sure it was her. But she got greedy, then defensive, then desperate. Classic escalation pattern. You see that a lot, more than you'd think. Usually with bigger stakes, though: money, property disputes, business conflicts. Stolen snow shovels are definitely a first for me." We laughed about it, though there was something melancholy in the laughter. A woman's life had been permanently altered because she couldn't let go of $45 worth of hardware store merchandise and her pride. The HOA settled into a new rhythm under Tom's leadership. He actually solicited input from residents before making decisions. He focused on real community improvements rather than enforcement actions. Pinewood Estates became what it was supposed to be all along, just a neighborhood where people lived their lives. I still live here. Same house, same yard, same driveway that needs clearing every winter. People sometimes ask me about the shovel incident with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. It's become part of the neighborhood lore, the cautionary tale about the HOA president who went to jail over a snow shovel. But it wasn't about a shovel. It never was. It was about boundaries and respect and accountability. It was about someone who thought their position made them untouchable and found out the hard way that nobody is above the law, not even over something as small as a $45 shovel. Every winter, when the snow starts falling and I'm out clearing my driveway, I feel a strange mix of emotions. Satisfaction that I stood up for myself. Sadness at how unnecessarily destructive the whole thing became. Relief that it's over. And always, a tiny bit of disbelief that any of it really happened. But it did happen. I have the court documents to prove it. I have the restitution check stub. I have hours of security footage. I have the memories of sitting in that courtroom, watching Patricia Henderson's life unravel because she couldn't bring herself to say, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Here's your shovel back." That's the part that sticks with me the most. How simple it would have been to just do the right thing. One moment of honesty, one acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and none of the rest would have happened. No police calls, no trial, no conviction, no jail time, no criminal record. Just a returned shovel and maybe some awkward interactions at HOA meetings, but pride is a powerful thing. So is the belief that you're entitled to do what you want. Patricia Henderson learned that lesson the hardest way possible, and now she'll carry the consequences for the rest of her life. As for me, I learned to document everything, trust my instincts when something seems wrong, and never underestimate how far someone will go to avoid admitting they made a mistake. I learned that the justice system, for all its flaws, can work even in cases that seem trivial on the surface. And I learned that sometimes standing up for yourself over something small is really about standing up for something much bigger. Your right to feel safe and respected in your own home. The snow is falling again as I write this, and I'll need to clear the driveway tomorrow morning. I'll grab my expensive shovel from its locked cabinet, probably shaking my head at the absurdity of needing a locked cabinet for a shovel, and I'll do the work that winter demands. And maybe, just maybe, I'll be grateful for the boring normalcy of it all, because normal is underrated. Normal is good. Normal is a winter morning with a shovel and a driveway and no HOA president trying to steal your stuff or break into your garage. Normal is the absence of police cars and court dates and criminal convictions over hardware store merchandise. Patricia Henderson lost her normal. She traded it for a criminal record and 8 months in jail, all because she couldn't let go of 2 snow shovels that never belonged to her in the first place. That's the real story here. Not the theft itself, but the cascade of bad decisions that followed it. The doubling down, the lying, the escalation, the absolute refusal to take responsibility until it was far too late. I hope she's doing okay wherever she is. I hope she's learned something. I hope she's found some peace with what happened and why. But mostly, I hope she's learned that no position of power, no matter how small, gives you the right to take what isn't yours. And I hope she's learned that admitting you're wrong is always easier than the alternative. As for Pinewood Estates, we're fine. Better than fine, actually. The HOA functions smoothly now. Neighbors are friendlier. People actually enjoy living here instead of feeling constantly watched for violations. It's what suburban life is supposed to be, and my shovel. It's safe in its cabinet, ready for the next snowfall. I know exactly where it is, and I know it'll be there when I need it. That's all I ever wanted in the first place. That simple certainty. That basic respect for property and boundaries. It cost Patricia Henderson a year of her life and a permanent criminal record to learn that lesson. I just hope it was worth it to her, though I suspect deep down she knows it wasn't. Nothing about this was worth it. Not for her, not for her family, not for the community she claimed to serve. But here we are. The story of how my HOA president got convicted and received a permanent criminal record for stealing my snow shovel. Twice. It sounds absurd when you say it out loud. It feels absurd to have lived through it. But every word is true, every detail documented, every consequence real. And somewhere in Michigan, there's a woman with a criminal record who probably wishes she just bought her own shovel that first winter morning instead of taking mine. But wishes don't change the past. Actions do. And Patricia Henderson's actions wrote a story neither of us wanted but both of us will remember forever. The snow keeps falling. Winter doesn't care about human drama. And tomorrow morning, I'll clear my driveway with my shovel. The same routine I've done hundreds of times, grateful for the boring predictability of it all.